75 years, NATO has been the backbone of European security, a military alliance built on collective defense. But now, that alliance faces one of its biggest threats yet, not from an external enemy, but from within. Since Donald Trump became president of the United States again, will NATO survive without America? Or is Europe ready to stand on its own? Let's break it down. 1. Setting the stage. Donald Trump has long accused European allies of not paying their fair share for defense. He's even hinted that the U.S. might abandon NATO altogether. His former national security advisor, John Bolton, believes a NATO withdrawal is highly possible. But is it really that simple? Legally, Trump can't just wake up one day and leave NATO. In 2023, Congress passed a law preventing any president from unilaterally withdrawing from the alliance. But here's the catch. Trump could ignore this and simply stop supporting NATO, pulling U.S. troops and funding, effectively making it a European alliance. That's what we call a soft withdrawal. 2. The impact of the U.S. withdrawal. A full U.S. withdrawal would be devastating. The U.S. currently has around 100,000 troops stationed in Europe, with 20,000 additional troops sent after Russia invaded Ukraine. If Trump pulls these forces back, it would leave a huge security gap, especially in NATO's eastern flank, places like the Baltics, Poland, and Romania. NATO's power comes from Article 5, the promise that an attack on one is an attack on all. Trump has already threatened to ignore this commitment, even saying he'd let Russia do whatever they want to countries that don't meet NATO's spending targets. That alone could weaken NATO's credibility. If allies don't trust each other, the alliance loses its power. 3. Can Europe handle its own defense? So if the U.S. steps away, can Europe handle its own defense? Well, there are some positives. European NATO members have over 1.5 million active personnel, and their combined military budgets are greater than Russia's. Countries like Germany, France, and the UK have top-tier defense industries, producing advanced fighter jets, tanks, and missile systems. But there are serious challenges too. While European countries are increasing their defense budgets, it takes years for new funding to turn into real military strength. Fragmentation is another issue. Every country prefers to develop its own weapons rather than working together, making defense coordination inefficient. Recruitment is also a big problem. The UK, for example, has cut battalions instead of increasing them. And across Europe, 300,000 new soldiers would be needed to match NATO's current strength without US support. 4. The Russia factor. A weakened NATO is exactly what Vladimir Putin wants. If the US pulls back, Russia could ramp up its influence in Eastern Europe, testing NATO's resolve in places like the Baltics. With Ukraine still fighting for survival, a fractured NATO could give Russia an opening to escalate its aggression. If NATO weakens, could the European Union step in? The idea of an EU army has been discussed for years, but without American leadership, European countries may be forced to take defense integration more seriously. Could an EU-led military force replace NATO as Europe's primary security structure? 5. Unpredictable players. Sweden just officially joined NATO in 2024, and Finland is still adjusting to its new role. But what about Ukraine and Georgia? If the US withdraws, would NATO still have the strength to support new members? Or would countries on Russia's border be left out in the cold? Then there's Turkey, a unique NATO member, balancing ties between the West and Russia. If the US steps back, could Turkey drift further from NATO and closer to Russia or China? How Ankara navigates this shift could reshape NATO's internal dynamics. 6. Economic consequences. A NATO without the US would mean a major shakeup in the defense industry. European arms manufacturers could see a boom, while American defense giants like Lockheed Martin and Boeing might lose major contracts. Funding is another issue. Europe would need to spend an additional 250 billion euros per year to fill the gap. Would EU countries be willing to raise taxes or cut social spending to finance their own defense? Final thoughts. Future of NATO. At the end of the day, NATO without the US wouldn't collapse overnight, but it would face serious growing pains. Europe has the potential to defend itself, but it will take time, money, and political will. And with global tensions rising, NATO's future may depend on whether Europe can truly stand on its own. So what do you think? Can NATO survive without the US? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more content on geopolitics and global conflicts. Check out our other videos on international security and stay informed.